Welcome back to the McCowan podcast for the beginning of the week. Baseball free agency is the conversation today. And I do guess we're waiting for the Japanese signings before anything else happens. Even if everybody goes to Nashville for the winter meetings, there's a good chance nothing happens if Ohtani hasn't signed. But Gregor, what is your expectation when the regular season starts about the rebuilding of the American League East? Baltimore's the best team, but can you give an idea of where you think the other teams in the division are?
Well, it's ironic because we spent a lot of time over the years talking about how good the American League East is, and it's only getting better at this point in time. The dangerous thing, from my mind, in the Jays' point of view, is that you're looking at a scenario where the Red Sox and Yankees have had a couple of down years. And they're going to be motivated to really kind of spend money and turn things around. I'm not really entirely sure what the Red Sox are doing yet. That one is still a bit of a mystery, but you're going to have an aggressive Yankees team. And when the Yankees are looking to spend some money and do some damage, that's going to make them better. And then on the flip side, you've got the Rays and the Orioles. Now, the thing working in the Jays' advantage here is that the Orioles and Rays are so cheap, because if they weren't as cheap as they are, the Jays would be in a world of trouble right now, because the Orioles, to me, have the best foundation in baseball probably right now. And if they had a little bit of money to back it up, I mean, if you were talking about adding 3-4 free agents to the mix that they already have, good free agents to the mix they already have this winter, I mean, that would by far and away be the team to beat. They're still going to be probably the team to beat going into next year, but I'm not expecting them to have that active of an offseason. I mean, they did next to nothing.
But they need starting pitching, right?
They do need starting pitching, and I think you're going to see them do similar things to what they did last year when they signed Kyle Gibson to a short-term deal. We've already seen that secondary market move a little bit, but they haven't been overly aggressive in that either. I mean, I think they're looking for the lower end pieces, and if you're a Jays fan, that gives you at least a bit of optimism, because if they were in the mix for some of these frontline starting pitchers, we've talked a lot about how the free agent market this offseason is pretty weak. It's not weak for pitchers, and the Orioles need pitching, and so they really could go out and control the market and really establish themselves as by far and away the best team in the American League East, and they're probably not going to do that. And similar story with the Rays. I mean, you've got Tyler Glass now, who they are debating whether or not they can afford to keep on their roster or not, because he's got a $20+ million salary for next year. And, the Jays would easily pay that, but the Rays can't. And so now they need to either get extremely creative to find ways to keep him on the roster, or they need to get rid of him. And so they're still going to be really good because they do this every year. But the fact is that, if those two teams had cash to spend, the Jays would be in a lot of trouble. And but they don't. So the Jays are in a similar spot to last year, except I view the Orioles as kind of that team that has kind of overtaken the Rays as kind of that emerging young team that is going to be problematic for years to come.
I get it that the Yankees and the Red Sox have lots of money and plenty of incentive to spend it, but there's so much that those teams have to do to get back to where they used to be, that I don't know that there are enough free agents out there or trades they can make to vault them at or near the top of the division. I mean, the Yankees have Aaron Judge if he's healthy and nothing else in the outfield. They have to decide which of several kids are their shortstop, and they can't decide that yet. Maybe they trade Gleyber Torres. First and third base, who knows? They have a young catcher. I have Garrett Cole on the mound, and Michael King looks like he can start regularly, and they got a decent bullpen if it's healthy. But I think the Yankees are a long way from being the Yankees, and I would say the same thing about the Red Sox. I don't know exactly what they do and how they do it, and you can start on the mound there. How do they build a pitching staff out of not very much? So if the Jays do things right, I think Baltimore is their main threat, and there's no reason to think the Jays can catch the Orioles. The Rays are just in such a bad state because of all of the Tommy John victims they have. on their pitching staff, but the Rays will find ways to win.
The Rays are the Rays.
But you can't convince me the Yankees and the Red Sox are going to be the Yankees and the Red Sox again just because of their money.
Oh no, I completely agree with that. I think the only thing is that I would counter is that I would expect them to be better than they were last year, and so I think that would make the division a little bit tougher. But the Yankees aren't going to be in the mix for a division title. I mean, there's a clear drop off there. You're right; they would need to add so many pieces to really make them a legitimate contender. But can they be in the mix for the wild card? I mean, because of the lack of depth in the American League, particularly in the bottom half, I could see that if they made the right moves. And I think I would just expect them to be a little bit better than they were in 2023, which will make some wins a little bit tougher to come by. And the Red Sox, I'm not really too sure about, because the Red Sox actually played a little bit better in 2023 than I thought they would, even though they were never a serious contender. And to me, they're just kind of one of those mediocre teams that will steal some victories and be a tough team to play at times, but not a serious contender. But just overall, it's just the depth, because now in years past, you used to have that Orioles team that you could beat up on every year and you'd be guaranteed a number of wins, which is kind of important now in the new playoff format. But there just really isn't that really weak team in the AL East. There is a lot of depth. But you're right, the Orioles are clear cut the upper echelon. The Yankees aren't.
What could I do to convince you to sign Joey Votto?
Oh, if he was willing to accept a reduced role, I would do it in a heartbeat. I just don't think that would necessarily be on the table. I would question why he would necessarily want to come in and do that, unless finishing his career in Toronto really meant that much to him. I mean, it would make for an incredible story. Obviously, he's a future Hall of Famer, a legend around these parts. I just don't know that you can commit regular at bats to him when he's coming off, a couple years of tough results and injuries. And to me, the Jays just need more certainty of that. If this was a situation where the Jays weren't looking to be a contender in 2024 and had an opening, it would be the exact type of feel-good story that you'd want to see. But to me, it's a tough fit. You'd have to run out of a lot of other options before you, as good as a story as it would be, you'd have to run out of a lot of options before you really pursue him.
Well, that's a splash that would make a headline. But otherwise, I don't think it qualifies as the splash the Jays need to make. The other team, if we're looking for that other team for Ohtani, there have been some reports and a claim that this is straight from Ohtani's thoughts, that he wouldn't mind playing at Fenway Park, so he could hit into the right field bleachers and bounce a few off the pesky pole. For interest in the division, if Ohtani went to the Red Sox and Yamamoto went to the Yankees, not going to do anything for the Jays, but boy, we'd like to watch the division more. So throw that out there and see where it goes. If I were Ohtani, I would like to hit at Fenway.
Yeah, it'd be pretty appealing. The only thing there is, I mean, Ohtani's had so much losing, and if I'm Ohtani, I need it doesn't. You're gonna be able to make your cash no matter what. You're gonna be able to pick your spot. I'd want more of a clear-cut short-term window to contend than the Red Sox have, and I'd probably be looking for an opt-out after, say, year two to kind of increase my chances of extending that long-term. But to me, if I was Ohtani, that's what I'd be wanting after all that mess in Anaheim for years. Just give me a place where I have a chance.
And do you expect any big signings before Ohtani, or are we just going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs and wait?
No, I think for the most part, you're just going to see more of the pitching market move a little bit. I mean, Sonny Gray reportedly reaching a deal with the Cardinals. He's kind of the biggest arm to go off the board at this point. We've seen a lot of the lower level starters go, and that's kind of typically how MLB free agency works. And I'm always reminded of when Robbie Ray re-signed with the Jays. He was the first free agent to come off the board that year. There's just usually a lot of movement in that fourth, fifth starter type before things really get going. And Gray obviously represents a little bit more than that, but it was a relatively short-term deal. So maybe you could see guys like that go, maybe a Marcus Stroman, markets like that. But I don't think you're going to see any of the big heavy hitters go off the board until Ohtani.
I'll give you Matt Chapman to the Giants anytime. I think that's going to happen.
I could see that. I actually like that as a fit. I could see that.